Hello and welcome back to Once Upon a Tea Time. Today will be the recording of another Podficker's Baton. This one will be for a Spider in Gotham fic. It's going to be a Peter Parker x Jason Todd fic. It's called Shutterbug by Iriley. Mouse Satan read Chapter 5. I will be reading Chapter 6, and Feliciana will be reading Chapter 7. With all that said, let's hop into the fic. After getting questioned for a while, Jason was free from Celine, Dick having to pick her up from the couch when she fell asleep during her questioning. Not long after, Jason saw Barbara starting to leave as well. Seems like everyone else is staying over, he thinks as he stands, stretching. Jason can feel his bones pop with a soft cracking sound. Making his way upstairs, Jason briefly sees Tim and Duke making their way towards the kitchen. Shaking his head at the two, presumably going to try and swiping a snack before everything is packed away. Jason continues his ascent to his room. Once there, he changes into his pajamas and lays on his bed, thinking back through the night. Jason can't help but give a small smile. I'll have to try and get that picture from Peter, he thinks, before he's reminded of the Tim's case. His hair and is he the one Tim's looking for? Probably. If they met before, he probably already has his theories. Jason thinks with a sigh, shaking his head and resolving to ask Tim in the morning. Jason moves to plug in his phone, and the screen lights up as he notices an unknown number had texted him. Peter. Picking up his phone, he unlocks it before pulling up the message. 718-808-8342. Hi, smiley face. Jason. Hey, this is Peter, right? Delivered. Must be asleep by now, he muses before shutting his phone off and rolling to the bedside, focusing on his steady breathing. Jason is quick to fall asleep. Beep, 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 beep. Slamming his hand down onto the alarm clock, Jason pulls his head out under the covers to shield his eyes from the sunlight pouring in. Groaning, Jason slips his hand out to grab his phone, checking the time, blinking as he reads 7:45 on the screen. He rubs his eyes and moves to sit up, his blanket falling away from him to show his now bare torso. He had removed it in the middle of the night, feeling uncomfortable and suffocated. Seeing his discarded shirt on the floor, Jason pulls the rest of the covers off in favor of grabbing it and putting it in his hamper. Moving into the bathroom, Jason turns on the water and removes the rest of his sleepwear, tossing it in with his shirt before grabbing his toothbrush. Brushing his teeth while the water warms, Jason can see the start of bags forming under his eyes from his restless sleep. Before he can be drawn into his thoughts, his phone buzzes on the counter. 718-808-8342. Yes, this is Peter. This is Jason, right? Jason. Yep. Scene 7:50. Peter. Awesome. Good morning, by the way. Jason. Morning to you, too. Got anything planned? Scene 7:51. Peter. 2. And kinda? I'm gonna stop by work and get some cleaning done. Jason. I'm texting. Do I really need to worry about grammar? Scene 7:52. Peter. Doesn't hurt. Sighing, Jason sends another quick text before stepping into the shower. Jason. Getting in the shower. Have fun cleaning. Scene 7:54. Once dried and dressed, Jason makes his way downstairs into the kitchen, seeing most of his family there. Jason thinks about backing out, but before he gets the chance, he's dragged on the stool by Dick and Celine. So, to recap now that Jason's here, Peter is our most likely lead in terms of finding and containing the Lazarus pit, Tim says, looking at his folder. Reaching forward to grab one of the muffins off the plate, Jason looks over at Tim as he continues. I ran him through your systems and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Peter Benjamin Parker, 18, birthday is August 10th, 5'7", short brown hair, brown eyes. I suspect that his right eye turned green after the pit, along with a white tuft of hair. Parents died when he was young in a plane crash, after which he lived with his aunt and uncle. Uncle was a police officer, shot by a mugger. A few years later, he lost his aunt, who worked at a food shelter, to a collapsing building. His school records are completely clean. No in or out of school suspensions, no write-ups, nothing. Only notes about him missing a week or so after his uncle's funeral. Tim reads off with a slight frown. He feels bad about sharing his new friend's information so openly, but he needs to make his family aware of it. The thing is, it's almost too clean. Even Dick had at least one skipped class, Tim continues. Bruce glances at Dick, who just turns away in an attempt to feign innocence. Celine giving a small chuckle, looking up at Jason, Tim starts again. You talked to him the most. Anything set off any red flags? Anything noteworthy? As he speaks, Tim grabs his note, pen, and pen. Thinking to the night prior, Jason begins. Not really. Acts like an old man sometimes, though. Made me put greens on my plate. Spell checked me this morning. Before he can say any more, Tim's head snaps up. This morning? You've been in contact? Tim questions. Nodding, Jason answered. Yeah, gave him my number last night. This seems to send Tim down a rabbit hole of the possibilities, now that there's a connection. Celine squints for a moment before speaking up. We have Wayne clothing, right? Why don't we set up a photo shoot and have Peter as the photographer? Tim can get more info and Jason can see him again. She smirks and wiggles her eyebrows at Jason at the end of her suggestion. Glaring and pushing her away right into Dick, who only just managed to stay in his chair, Jason makes sure to avoid Bruce's questioning glare. That's not a bad idea. We haven't done one ourselves in a while. It might help the company too. Show our faces in something other than galas and parties, Dick says as he adjusts himself onto the stool again. Bruce gives a grunt and what they know is approval, and Tim grabs his phone to make the call, moving out of the room as he does. What's this about wanting to see him again? Bruce says, looking at Jason. Jason stops mid-bite and gives him a side-eye, biting down and eating the muffin. Jason lets the silence hang in the air for a moment before making a show of swallowing. Before he can come up with an excuse, Celine leans forward over the counter and cuts in. He thinks he's cute. Snapping his head to look at her with a betrayed expression, Jason ignores the heat in his face, standing up quickly and taking the muffin with him. Jason moves out of the kitchen, grabs his key off the wall hook, shouting over his shoulder, not waiting for a response as the door slammed closed. Okay, I'm going out. Bye. Jason makes his way down the steps towards his bike, speeding off as soon as he's on. Back in the manor, blinking at his second oldest son's quick departure, Bruce looks at Celine for more information. Would you like to elaborate? He starts. Celine pauses before giving a sly smile. Not particularly, no, she says before standing up and walking out of the kitchen, passing Tim, who was making his way in. Dick's head unceremoniously falls onto the counter as he tries to hold back his laughter at Celine's actions. We're all set on the photo shoot. Since we're all going to be there, I want us to do 3 different styles. What'd I miss? Tim looks around at his confused family. Apparently, Jason thinks Peter is cute, Duke says, looking a little shell-shocked. Tim slowly turns to face him before responding. Huh? Tim, ever the intellectual, says, sighing before taking a long sip of his coffee. Bruce can only shake his head at his children's antics. With Peter, staring at his phone, Peter can't fight off the small blush forming on his face. Jason, going to take a shower. Have fun cleaning. Shaking his head, Peter sets his phone off and gets dressed in a t-shirt and jeans before slipping on his shoes, grabbing his wallet. Peter makes his way out the window, down the wall. Checking as his phone buzzes, Peter sees a text from Jason. The only number in his phone right now, but who's asking? Jason, could I get a copy of the picture last night? The one of my siblings at the drink station? Of course. I'll ask about getting a copy at work. I'll let you know when I have it so we can meet up. Scene, 9:30 a.m. Jason. Thanks. Let me know. Walking down the street, Peter quickly makes his way to the bus stop, glancing up slightly as he sees a familiar face. Oh, hello. It's good to see you again, he says as he sits down next to the older lady, the one he helped at the laundromat, as she smiles up at him. They begin to talk as they wait for the bus to come. I never did get your name, Peter thinks out loud, causing her to chuckle. You can call me Betty, dear. How have you been? Peter, right? She checks herself, giving a small smile and nod. Peter responds. I've been doing good. What about you? She nods before pausing, thinking before turning to respond. I've been good. Business is booming, so that certainly helps. Turning his head, Peter tries to ask about her work, but the bus pulls up, cutting him off. As Peter stands and turns to Betty, he sees her making her way down the road. Aren't you going on the bus? Peter calls after her. She stops and turns and faces him. I believe I left something at home. I'll take the next one, she says before continuing down the walkway. Before Peter gets the chance to say anything, the bus driver honks the horn, making Peter jump. Getting on, kid, or not? The gruff man says, giving a quick, yes, sorry, before paying the fare and sitting down. A short ride later, and Peter stands in front of Gotham News. Walking in, Peter gives a quick wave and a smile to the lady at the front desk before moving to Jen's office. Giving a knock and getting a, come in, Peter makes his way in. I have the pictures from last night, along with the Nightwing picture. At the mention of Nightwing, Jen's head snaps out from whatever paper she was working on. She holds out her hands, and Peter hands her the camera. She's quick to plug it in and look through the gala photos, pausing slightly at the picture of Jason smiling that Peter didn't even know he took, and the picture before it, before seeing the image of Nightwing in action. Smiling, she looks up at Peter before going into her desk for her checkbook. "I don't know how you do it, kid, but keep it up," she says as she scribbles something down on the check, ripping it out and handing it to Peter, who does his best not to freak out at the number written down. 25,000? Smiles and takes the camera back. "Would I be able to get a picture from the gala printed? Jason wanted a copy of the group one," Peter asks, remembering the text from before. Jen pauses and looks at Peter before responding. "Jason, as in Jason Todd Wayne, the one the gala was for, Jason?" she asks, getting a nod from Peter, who explains. "He gave me his number last night, and he texted me earlier asking if he could have a copy. Is that not allowed?" Jen shakes her head to dismiss the thought. "No, it's fine. Photographers normally print off their favorite photos for a personal album, and as a file for other jobs. You can bring the SD card down to the hall to get some copies. Door should be open. If not, there's a sign that says copies on the front." She pauses for a moment before seeming to remember something. "Speaking of jobs, I got a call earlier from Wayne Enterprises requesting you for a photo shoot. Says that the Wayne family are the models, so look forward to that. It'll be this upcoming weekend. Make sure you bring a jacket as it gets cold in that building." She lists off while writing something down on a post-it note before handing it to Peter. Once he grabs it, she starts again. "That's the address and time. Make sure you're there a bit early to meet with the fashion crew." With that said, she flops back into her chair and continues to fill out her papers. Okay, thank you," Peter says before turning to face the door, moving to make his way out, giving a "bye" as the door clicks closed. Sighing, Peter makes his way down the hall to the copy room. Said room only being 2 doors down, open as Jen said it would, so Peter pops his head in to make sure no one is using it. Standing next to the machine, Peter realizes something he doesn't know how to use this old of a model. Cursing the universe's dated tech, not for the first time since arriving here, when he hears a small chuckle coming from the door. His spider sense hadn't spiked, so Peter thinks the short lady standing behind him is safe. Or as safe as you can be in Gotham. "Need help?" she says and walks over to him, blushing a bit at needing help in the first place. He nods. She holds out her hand and Peter places the camera there, after an embarrassing amount of time trying to figure out why her hand was out. She takes it and plugs in a wire that had been sitting on the next table over. "There. Now you just have to pick out the pictures you want and how many of each, then press this button and you'll be all set," she says. Peter makes note of the process for later. "Thanks. I really appreciate it. I'm Peter," he says with a smile, sticking his hand out. Returning the smile, she shakes his hand while speeding. "It's nice to meet you, Peter. I'm Katrina, but you can call me Kat." Letting her hand go, Peter looks back at his camera. "I'll let you get back to printing, but we should hang out sometime," she says as she makes her way back to the door. Nodding, Peter calls after her. "Sounds like a plan. I'll talk to you then." With that, Peter sets his eyes on the screen in front of him. Jason wants the group picture, the one of him smiling is a good shot. Blushing a bit at the picture, he continues. He'd probably want one with him and Mr. Wayne. Clicking the pictures, making 2 copies of each, Peter silently decides to get a picture binder later. Peter looks at his other 2 photos. Might as well. Waiting for the printer to finish, Peter spots a vending machine on the wall nearby. Reaching for his wallet, Peter mains his way over, deciding on a jumbo honey bun he inserts his cash. Hearing the sound of the machine as it struggles to drop the pastry, Peter almost believes he'll be down $1.50 with no honey bun. Soon after the thought, the pastry drops with a thud. Smiling, Peter bends down to grab it, hand getting crushed between the metal and heavy door blocking him from his snack, or rather his breakfast, which he does not grimace at the line on his hand. Standing, Peter opens and eats the sweet pastry as the printer finishes, the machine giving a high-pitched beep to tell him it's done. Throwing out the sticky plastic and cleaning his hands with the nearby hand sanitizer, Peter grabs the photos. Thinking for a moment, Peter takes them up to the lady up front. "Do you have a spare folder I could borrow?" he asks, now able to see her name tag, ages able to put a face to a name. "Tammy." Blinking up at Peter, she pulls out a red folder and places it on the counter in front of her. Counter in front of her to him. She places it on the counter in front of her. Smiling, Peter grabs it and slips the pictures inside. Thanking her, he mages his way out to deposit his check.